From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. My guest today can best be described as a force. Lesley Gale is the owner of 11 world records, 3 British records, 4 European records, has competed and medaled at more than 100 skydiving competitions, and has been a key organizer for 20 female world, national, and European records. Lesley was also the editor of British Skydiving's magazine from 1996 to 2010, and during that time she received the Royal Aero Club Nexus Trophy for Aviation Journalism in 2009. If that wasn't enough, she launched her online magazine skydivemag.com in 2013, which today is one of the most read skydiving magazines in the world. And last but not least, was inducted into the International Skydiving Museum and Hall of Fame in 2022. Welcome to the podcast, my friend, Lesley Gale.
Thank you. It's very good to be here speaking to you.
Oh, pleasure, Lesley. That's a pretty impressive resume you
I
have
know
there.
I felt almost embarrassed as you were reading it out. Embarrassed and impressed as well, but it's nice having some
That is you. Let's talk about your most recent accolade, which is your induction into the International Skydiving Hall of Fame. Can you share what that award means to you, what that whole thing was like?
Well, it was just such an honor. Most of the mentors that have really helped me and progressed me in the sport, most of them or many of them are already in the Hall of Fame already. And to find out that I was going to be joining those people was a huge honor. And I just hope that some of the women that I've coached and mentored, that I'm going to be seeing them join me in the Hall of Fame in future years. That's all I really want out of my coaching. But yes, as I say, it was outstanding. One of the highest accolades of my life, because it comes from one's peers, not, it's not a popularity contest on social media. It comes from the heart. So recognition from amongst your peers is really where it's at. It means the most.
What did it look like? I can't imagine when you got the phone call, I'm assuming maybe from Mary Lou, that says, you're in.
Well, I got the phone call, but I missed the call and I got a message to call back. So because I run skydivemag.com, and we normally run an article on the Skydiving Museum and the Hall of Fame awards, then I called back expecting that we were going to discuss the post-event article and how to get photographs to me, what angle we were going to take, etc. So when I called back and found out that it was the very great honor of offering me to join them in the Hall of Fame, I was just amazed. I think the conversation went something like this: no. And Mary said, yes, yes. So there you go. It was a huge surprise.
Wow, that must have, clearly you were taken, you never saw that coming.
No, not at all. Not in a million years.
So we've just started with maybe your highest accolade, perhaps. Certainly one of the biggest achievements one can have in skydiving. Let's go back to the beginning. You're originally from Scotland.
Yes.
Was there any early indicators in your childhood that you would live a life so entrenched in skydiving?
No, but I was always a tomboy, a roughy-tufty. My sister was in playing with dolls and reading books, and I was outside running, jumping, climbing trees, and jumping off all sorts of things I wouldn't dream of jumping off now. In fact, thinking about it, we used to play a game called Kick the Ball, which is kind of like hide and seek, only instead of going and so people are sort of, when they're found and they're out. But if you can go and kick the ball, then everyone who's out becomes free again. And I developed this stunt, now I think about it, where I would jump off the garage roof, that's a one-story building, and kick the ball, and no one could see that coming. So I didn't think of that as being my early skydiving career, but I guess you could say I did a base jump when I was about 9, just without a parachute.
Wow.
Then also when I was I think about 10 or 12, something like that, I went to a kind of local village fete. And there I saw the Red Devils jumping in. They had what we would know as Para Commanders, PC parachutes. And I thought this was just incredible. It blew me away to see this aircraft in the blue sky, and then these people gradually get bigger and bigger, and realizing that they're actually going to land in the arena right in front of us, and they are so cool that they can make it into that space because there was nowhere else to go. So I thought that was amazing, but I didn't know that skydiving then was a sport. That was the Red Devils, and I thought you could only do it in the military. So as soon as I found out I could do it, fortunately I was old enough to, and I went and signed up for the first jump course and never looked back.
Before we get to that point, I understand that you went to, in your words, a rather posh school that was about 40 kilometers, 30 odd miles or so from your home. And you got a scholarship there. I was curious, what did you get a scholarship for?
Well, basically, because we couldn't afford the fees. I wasn't from that kind of family. The scholarships were awarded. You went and sat an entrance exam, and there were some deserving cases who got offered a free place, which happened to me. And the reason I was entered for that happens to be my birthday. It was kind of an accident of fate because my birthday is the 2nd of September, but I got into the wrong year at school. So I was basically the youngest one in the year. But I shouldn't have been in that year. I should have been in the year below. And when I got to the last year in junior school and was going to come up to secondary school, they said, oh, no, you can't go up to secondary school. You're not old enough. You'll have to stay behind and retake the last year of junior school. Well, can you imagine what bigger way to demotivate a smart child and make them spend a year with the kids in the year below that they've always looked down to and redoing all the same subjects where you'd be way ahead. So my mum just thought that's not going to happen. So that's why she started entering me for private schools, for the examinations for private schools, was really because she knew what would happen if I'd had to retake that year. I would probably become a truant and a nuisance and all sorts. But yeah, she sat me in various entrance exams. I got offered scholarships to quite a few, actually. Central High in Newcastle was the one that I chose, and it was a wonderful school. I would feel very privileged to have had that education.
Of course, you'd go on to uni, and there you would find that there was a club or a skydiving club.
Yes.
Did your brain immediately go back to when you were 9 or 10 seeing the Red Devils? Was there any introduction to skydiving between that first introduction with the Red Devils in university, or?
No contact at all. But just as you said, my brain immediately went back to that display with the Red Devils, and I'm in. Signed up straight away.
What was your first jump like?
I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. My first jump was also my first ride in an aeroplane, because nowadays we don't realize how privileged we are that air transport is so affordable for most of us. So I thought it was a little strange that we were in an aeroplane and there was a huge hole, because in those days we didn't have in-flight doors. So I just sort of sat and stared at this hole all the way up. And I remember thinking then, well, as I got into the plane, I'm really scared, but they said, but you've got to jump anyway, so I'm just going to pretend that I'm not. And that same philosophy has carried me through many world records, many competitions, many times of being really scared or feeling that I wasn't going to be good enough and saying, well, just pretend, fake it till you make it. And I guess I've been faking it for a long time now.
If I'm not mistaken, you made, 2 or 3 jumps in the first day?
Yes, 3 jumps in the first day.
Amazing. Particularly then. I mean, it's not like how it is today. I mean, it takes a minute to pack those older parachutes, I imagine.
It takes quite a while. I could probably still do it. Starting with a round parachute and a front-mounted reserve, also a round parachute.
Yeah, I also read that you still remember your emergency procedures for
Four.
for
One,
that belly.
3, 4. One is so you put your hands on your front mount reserve and you basically pull the handle, and then you put your hands in and pick up the material of the reserve and physically throw it out in front of you. That's how basic it was.
If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. Lesley, you have an incredible career, and I share one similarity with you. Of all your achievements, I have one thing where we have a same experience. And that is, on my 50th jump, I had a toggle fire, and I freaked out, and I cut away. And I read that that's exactly what happened to you. Would you? I had a little different outcome. Would you share that story?
Well, the moral of this story is there's no such thing as a stupid question, because the reserve that I had was something called a four-line chop. And when we were packing it, I was going out with a boyfriend who was an instructor at the time, as happens quite a bit. He said something about a four-line release, and I said, "What's that?" And he just said dismissively, "Oh, it's a four-line chop." And I kind of felt a bit stupid. I didn't really like to say that I didn't really know what he meant. So we'll go back to the reserve in a moment. So basically, I left, had a toggle fire. I think I had about 30 jumps at the time or something like that. Whether I panicked and thought I had a malfunction, or whether I actually thought, "Yippee, it's happened to me," because there's always that thing where you always want to have a malfunction just to see if you can deal with it. Well, I didn't really have a malfunction. I'm pretty sure I just had a toggle file. When I think about it, I gaily cut away. By this time, I'm on a piggyback system, so with both parachutes on the back, no front mount reserve. Cut away, deployed my reserve, and the concept of a four-line chop reserve or a four-line release is it's a round reserve. There are four lines which you pull to release, and that deforms the parachute at the back, and it gives you a slight forward speed. And you steer it by pulling the lines on either side of the ones that you've released. Well, I didn't know this. Because I'd been stupid to ask as to what I thought was a stupid question, and I went up and put my hands on what I thought were the toggles. All that did was release the lines. And I looked up and thought, "Oh, well, I didn't know that this was supposed to happen." I thought, it's not my lucky day. I've got a malfunctioning reserve as well. And so instead of trying, the skydiver that I am now would just keep trying. Don't give up. I just let myself. If you leave any parachute like that, it'll just turn and run with the wind. So I tried to pull a little bit on the risers to try and steer it a little bit, but it wasn't really happening. And basically at that point, my brain was in overload. So I just carried on going downwind under this reserve until I hit the runway. Attempted a PLF, but not a very good one, and broke my ankle. A lot of lessons to be learned there. Don't panic, know your equipment, and keep trying. Never give up.
Lesley, were there any female examples for you? I mean, here you're carving your way into skydiving in England, which has a small jumping population. Did you have an example or anyone that was like, okay, she's doing it, I can do this, or what was that?
Sarah Brearley was a jumper. So she was in partnership with Rob Colpus, who many people have heard of. He was the British World Team captain and organised many events. And they ran a jumpsuit business together, Symbiosis Suits. And I would see pictures of her in the magazine just going around the world, jumping 16-way, 4-way, 8-way, and just being there on equal terms. And it never really occurred to me that there was any difference between men and women. I felt very special the day that I actually met Sarah. Other women around at the time, Debbie Allen, Alison Cronley. Debbie was certainly, a big motivator for me. But it never occurred to me that there was any difference between men and women. But in fairness, there's a lot more role models around now. I think it's a lot more obvious for women coming into the sport that there is no difference.
What in your makeup or your psyche? Because like I only know you since I've met you probably years ago at a PIA. I've only known you at one speed, and it's like blazing. It's not moving forward; it's blazing forward, right? I don't. My perception of you, Lesley, is you don't dip your toe into the water. You are diving in and swimming forward. And maybe you don't even know how to swim, but you're figuring it out as, almost with a confidence like, yeah, I will figure this out. It doesn't seem like you doubt. But where does this come from, this drive? Because you've achieved at such a high level.
I don't know. If I knew I could bottle it and sell it, couldn't I? I really don't know, but I've kind of always been the same. If I think I want to do something, then I'll just do it. I want to move to a new city, just pack my stuff up in the car and go 2 weeks later. Whatever. I've just always had this. If I want to do something, then I'm very focused, and I will just clear all obstacles out of the way to get what I want. And what I want sounds quite selfish. Quite often what I want is in other people's interests as well. Like when I organize records, then that's definitely for the collective. But yes, I'll just be very, very clear and determined. But I think I can only be so focused and so full on, because when you don't see me, sometimes I'll be full off. I'm either full on working or full on charging with skydiving. Sometimes I can be full on kayaking as well, but I will definitely take time to sit by the pool in the sun and read a book. We just come back from a holiday in Senegal where we really did very little indeed. And I need some time to recharge my batteries. I can't go at that full on speed all the time. And I've also took me a while to learn this, that I can't take on too many projects at a time, because I can't give that amount of energy to all of them at the same time. Once I pick a project up, it kind of gets a life of its own, and I get very passionately involved in it. For example, skydivemag.com or the British 8-Way project or various record projects. I can't think of anything else. So I can't take on too many at a time. Just have to manage my energy levels. No idea where it comes from.
It's a refreshing energy, Lesley. In one's skydiving career, there comes a point where you get noticed. Right, you're seeing all these load organizers, and you look up to them, and then you become one yourself, and people looking up to you. Was there an event or a jump or something that was like, oh, Lesley, we need to pay attention to her?
Well, I think where my career started was the first British record event in 2002. So a friend of mine, a jumper, Erica Richardson, said to me, Lesley, we need a new British record, a British ladies record. It's about time. And I agreed. She said, yes, absolutely, I agree. And she says, and it should be organized by a woman, because these things are always organized by men. It's patronizing. And I said, I absolutely agree. And she said, and you're the woman for the job. And I went, oh, it wasn't something that I would have pushed myself forward to, but since she'd started very cleverly with those first two statements and then said that I was the woman for the job, then it became obvious to me that I was the best person for the job, because simply at the time I had more world records and European and national record experience than anyone else in the country. I think mainly because I'd been invited on Rob Colpus's Symbiosis Suit 16-way team, and through that he knew me as a skydiver, so asked me on record events. So I took on the challenge of organizing this British project, as we called it. I got a partner in crime who was Kate Stevens, another amazing skydiver and inspiration. And we organized some road shows as build-up events, and then the big event itself was going to happen at the Langer Boogie. And so I'd put all this effort into organizing it, invited some women. Shortly before the event, we had a look and figured we were a little bit short on people, so I personally rang some people, and Kate personally rang some people and tried to get them to get there. So I'm driving to my first ever organizing event, the Brit Chicks. I've got 60 women there, all relying on me, and I just have no clue if I can deliver what they want or not. No clue. And I'm driving there, and instead of thinking about my opening address, I'm trying to come up with what excuse I could possibly make to drive right past the drop zone and not turn up. and short of imaginary killing off someone off my family, I really couldn't think of an excuse that was going to wash. So I figured, like my first jump, okay, I'm pretty scared, but I'm just going to go there and pretend that I'm not, and it'll probably be all right. And that record was great. We actually got a record on the first time that we went for it, which was a 40-way. So we did a couple of build-up jumps, did a 40-way. And we got it on the jump, and we got it so quickly that the photographers didn't have a photo of it because they were busy whizzing around and getting their arty shots. But fortunately, we followed it up with a 50-way on the same event too. So I guess that was my start, and I loved it. It was the same sort of achievement as being on the first jump. You're so scared, and then you land and you're so buzzed up that you've had this amazing special experience. And it was very similar. I didn't know if I could organize this record. When I say I, it should be we, Kate and I. And I didn't know if we could deliver it. And then at the end we did, and I had such an amazing time. And what was really motivating about it, and why I do these events, was the number of women at the end. It's like a hug parade. Everybody coming up and hugging Kate and I, say thank you. We've learned so much. We're going to take this knowledge back to our drop zone. I just wanted to do it again.
When I hear the term Brit Chicks, to me it's synonymous with Lesley Gale. Was that name or term used prior to you? Is that a thing that was going on?
No. Kate and I came up with it. I can't remember. You bounce names around, and yeah, we came up with Brit Chicks because it says it. We're British and we're chicks.
It has a great ring to it. There's Arizona Airspeed, lovely alliteration. Brit Chicks. It just has it rolls off very nicely.
I think chicks in England maybe has a different connotation. I think chicks in America is maybe a bit of a derogatory term, but maybe that's changed with great boogies like Chicks Rock and things. But chick is that's an okay thing to call a girl. It's kind of a complimentary thing.
I never viewed that as such, as more of when you own a name, it takes any kind of power out of it, and it's sort of celebrated.
Nicely so.
Yeah, so I see it that way. So Brit Chicks would carry on. I mean, I know you did the 8-way project. Share a little bit about that.
Well, the 8-way project really, in a way, had nothing to do with Brit Chicks, the record project, but it was just a good name, and we were Brit Chicks, and so we ran with it. I used to regularly do a scratch 8-way team at the Nationals, so I would just get together another 7 people that I thought could do well with, and just go play for fun. And normally we'd get a medal, which is always nice to have some fun and go home with a medal and not have had to pay all that money for training. And then there was one year when it was not long after the tunnel had opened up, the 16-foot tunnel, which at the time, was massive. And it was the first tunnel that we had in the UK, in Bodyflight Bedford. And I figured there was 2 reasons to make my scratch 8-way an all-female team, because it would mean that we could all fly together because we've got similar sizes and body shapes. That's one, without people having to wear stupid amounts of weight. And secondly, because I figured we could train very nicely in that tunnel, which the small female bendy form tunnels we're very tunnel friendly, more so than big heavy guys. So we did 2 nights training in the tunnel in the week before the Nationals, and I taught the girls what I knew about 8-way from some previous 8-way training that I'd done, and went up there and rocked it and got a silver medal, and decided that was great, and why didn't we just stay together?
Nice.
So we stayed together. Well, it wasn't exactly the same lineup, but we formed a lineup out of the part of probably 4 or 5 of the women on there, and brought in some other women, had tryouts, and went and trained in the US with Kirk Werner at what was then Skydive Rayford, that's now Skydive Paraclete. And yes, I think the project carried on for about 3 years, to culminating when we went and represented the UK in Dubai and became the first all-female 8-way team to represent their country as a world meet, which is pretty cool.
What was that meet like in Dubai? That was like 2012, was it?
Well, if we were only going to go to one world meet, we went to a World Cup as well, but if we were only going to go to one world meet, that was the one. And you felt like royalty. I felt like I was on a James Bond film, actually. We'd take off on the Palm and then land on one of the fronts of the Palm on the other side and then get a speedboat back under the bridge, back to rejoin this immense tent village that they'd set up with marquees and there were flash dances. There was all sorts of incredible things going on. It was a non-stop carnival. I knew all world meets weren't like that, but it blew my mind. Oh, and there was a skydiving competition going on as well.
Anyone who I've talked to that was there for that event, it's almost surreal for the level of I don't know, just taking skydiving, which isn't known to be celebrated that way. Anything aside from the skydiving and the views from above that was sort of a pinch me moment from that event in Dubai?
Yeah, definitely the views from above. I think the first jump there, just tracking off and looking down at the sea and the Palm and just really pinching myself and then you open and the fronds of the Palm actually seem quite narrow when you're way out to sea. And that's another of those moments when I was a bit scared, but saying, no, I can handle this. I got thousands of jumps. Of course I can land there, which of course I could land in that area if you pinned it down on a piece of grass. But it's funny what being totally surrounded by water will do to your head, because it's really essential that you land on that piece. And either side there's skyscrapers, so it's that piece of sand or nothing, basically. I mean, obviously they had speedboats, but
one would rather not land in the water. If you're a fan of the 20-Minute Call, I'd like to personally invite you to become a member of a budding community on Patreon. By becoming a patron of the show, you can join me behind the scenes to discuss options for future guests, chat about things we've already heard, and gain access to some show swag. Details on how to become a patron can be found in the show notes. I'd love for you to join me. Okay, on with today's show. Lesley, you were on the 400-way world record, were you not?
Yes, that was another pinch me moment.
Tell me about that experience.
Well, one of the pinch me moments was just the noise. We had 5 Hercules. We were jumping out of 5 Hercules. Can you imagine when these beasts come up the runways? You probably heard the noise of one, but 5 of them all together, these monsters, the jet fumes, the smell, there's this sort of haze in the air. And we got more than 400 skydivers, all in coloured suits, running out to their aircraft. I just felt like I was in a movie, but it was an actual movie. You know, movies, they're designed to make life look bigger than it really is. That was a moment when life really seemed bigger than it really was. I didn't look. Anytime that I went out of the plane, I didn't look behind me at all, but just to visuals, to see 5 aircraft, on the video, see these 5 Hercules spilling out 400 skydivers, just incredible. Leaving from the ramp, tucking in next to the diver, we're all supposed to be sheepdogging down, so we're diving down close enough so we could almost take grips on each other, just diving for longer than I've ever dove in my life before. You couldn't see anything when you get out. You just have to trust the people in front, and then slowly the formation appears and you start grouping around it. I remember thinking it's at one point that this thing sort of had a life of its own. I mean, there's a big difference between a 100-way and a 200-way formation. A 100-way actually isn't that much bigger than a 16-way. It's pretty easy to get your head around. Going from a 100 to a 200 it's an immense difference in scale. You have to start collecting your people and coming in formation further out. You can't be individual on a 200-way, and then taking that up to a 400-way, it's like an exponential increase. Just so many people, so many skydivers, they were everywhere and just sticking together and being our team and going and doing our job. being in the formation, we knew that one, the 400 weight, we knew it was complete. BJ started nodding, and he had a radio on. Some of us could hear the radio, and there was a feeling. I'm getting it now. Actually, I'm getting an electricity. There was just, everybody knew. It was the jump after we'd done a 399, and we basically went straight back up to do it again. That was the only time of the event that we did 3 jumps in the day. So then this feeling tracking off from that 400 way, knowing we've done it. All right, I know the judges need to look at it and check every grip, but you just know that it's complete. And then you've got more than 400 skydivers, because there's 11 cameramen, 12 camera persons, I should say, as well. And we're all in sky together, whooping and hollering and cheering. Especially for me, I had one of those slots. It was called a tracking pull-out slot. So as we went in our tracking team, instead of tracking away with everybody else, I would track away and up, 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 and open my parachute after about 8-10 seconds, and there I am under canopy at about 6,500 feet, looking down underneath me at the rest of the skydivers who are all tracking away and just looking at this incredibly beautiful colored sight. They're all in red, yellow, and blue, tracking away in all these multicolored canopies opening everywhere. It was surreal. It was very, very surreal. And we had a sector. Everyone had a sector planned that they were supposed to land in. But shall I say, that particular jump, then some people in my sector might have had a little wind shift. We might have landed a little closer to the crowd than was intended originally, just because of the moment of the jump, and then being surrounded by all these little Thai children got all so excited. Yes, it was amazing.
So firstly, as you were describing it, I got goosebumps. Wow. The visuals of all these, 100 skydivers odd coming out of the back of a Hercules C-130. It's hard to imagine where everyone is emotionally. This is such a big thing, and in sort of such unfamiliar territory, like these type of airplanes, and using oxygen and all the rest of it. Were you ever scared?
I wasn't really scared on that event. I was just focused, really, really focused. But 2 years before that was the 357. And that started with a 672-person demo into Bangkok. And I remember the organizer showed us a picture of Bangkok, which is just wall-to-wall buildings, and there's one place to land in the middle of it. And it's a lot bigger than the Palm, mind you, but this is really the only place you can go other than the river. And he said, 672 skydivers in here? Trust me. Right, now, I've always found in life you should never trust someone who says, trust me, right? Because why else would they be saying, trust me? And we did this demo, and we wondered, where are the other, we had about 380, 400 people there. We thought, where are these other 300 skydivers going to come from? They turned up and they were from the Thai army, most of them. So they're mostly about half our size, and they're wearing kit that looks as though they've wandered into a skydiving museum and picked up. There's people with front mount reserves, there's people with power commanders, there's people with 4 pins in the back of their rig. It all looks really hugely too big for them. So we go up and do the jump, and of course the winds are over the top, and of course they're blowing in entirely the wrong direction. And if you followed the brief and landed where you were supposed to land in front of the building with a nice rollover from the turbulence that was coming right over there, if you followed that brief, then there was quite a few people that got hurt. Personally, I landed quite sensibly, quite far on the other side, but we had a lot of the people from World Team were hurt, and an awful lot of the Thai skydivers, because they were on round parachutes, on 5-cell parachutes, 5-cell ram air parachutes, drifting backwards, landing on buildings, trees, tuk-tuks, you name it. It was a terrible start. And then we went from there to another airfield, where we started to work on the FS record itself. And then it just seemed to me like every jump someone was being hurt, every jump. And people that you don't expect to be hurt. people like Kate Cooper Jensen and Dieter Kirsch. These are our safety idols, if these people are getting hurt. And I really realized at one point that I was scared. And what made me realize it is, just realize that my mind was not on the event, and I figured I'd just have to have a mental word with myself and either stand myself down or get a grip. And I had a good long think and thought about, exactly what it was that I was scared of. I figured I could mitigate all those risks, and just gave myself a mental kick up the backside and readjusted somehow. And after that I was okay and came back in one piece, with the record. But yes, there were some scary moments in records.
Wow. Crazy. Just coming back to that demo, 672, what and how many aircraft were used for that?
There was some kind of weird DC-3 type of kind of Thai version of it. They looked like DC-3s, but they were called something else. And also Hercules. I doubt if there was actually 672 skydivers all in the air at the same time, because they would run in and run in and run in. There was constantly people coming out of them and parachutes in the sky. It was, again, absolutely astonishing visuals. And I remember having an incredibly focused mind, incredibly focused. I'd gone back to an old canopy that I hadn't jumped for years, a Stiletto 120, which is still my canopy of choice. I borrowed one from a friend, so it's my first jump on this canopy, but I trusted it. But I wasn't particularly used to the glide angle and whatever. And I just remember being just incredibly focused. You know that the decisions that you make in the next 2 minutes could, make the difference between glory and disaster. And I think that's one of the things we do skydiving for, isn't it? When you get in that flow moment, when you get in that moment when you're perfectly concentrated, perfectly focused, nothing is going to put you off your game. It's quite special.
So when you go to the 400 way in Thailand 2 years later, I imagine everyone had remnants of the boogie, or that demo, and obviously hoping that no one would get injured. But when you look at the names on that record, I mean, it is legends, many Hall of Famers, and more Hall of Famers probably still to come that haven't been inducted yet. Anybody in that core group that really impressed you during that world record?
Well, I would say what really impressed me overall was how the captains worked together. All of the captains, all legends in their own mind. How do you manage to get 400 people coordinated? Well, you can't one person can't organize it all. So there were captains of the base sector of the base, and captains of each of the sectors, each of the coloured segments that you see, and they were normally roughly in nations. So there were a couple of American sectors. There was a Scandinavian sector, a British sector, a French sector, etc. It would be, as you want, the ideal management situation to work, whereby you got BJ Worth at the top. He's got his lieutenants around him, the captains. They discuss how things are going to go. The captains come to us, present this plan to us. Then sometimes they get feedback from us and then take it back to the boardroom, and that goes back to the top and different decisions are made. And I thought that the way that all of those legends worked together to make that record happen was outstanding. I mean, it's hard to pick out. I suppose if I picked out anyone else, it would be Craig Girard, who came on the event kind of, he does from Arizona airspeed 8-way and 4-way team. That's what he does all the time. So he came on it for a bit of a recreation, just come and do some big way, enjoy myself, see a lot of visuals and whatever. Well, the 8-way base wasn't quite working. It was funneling every time. So where did Craig end up? In the middle of the base. He'd gone there on holiday, and there he was launching 8-way. Still from a Hercules, where it slows down to freefall speed, rather than from his regular twin otter in Arizona. But yeah, that was quite legend. And the Thai jumpsuit makers made him overnight a lime green suit. He's the only person that you see that's in lime green. I can remember him walking around the drop zone. Lime green's hardly a color anybody really wants to put on, but yeah, he rocked it. And you'd see him, like, the base would launch and it would start to go off kilter, off heading, and his knee would come down like a rudder and steer the whole thing back on course. And there was one debrief when the other base guys started going, hey guys, we should all be helping Craig. We should all be helping him turn it back on heading. And Craig's like, it's okay, man, I got it covered. And he starts to move on. No, says the guy, we really need to be helping him. It's up to all of us to keep it back on heading. I mean, you can see Craig's knee is down there like a rudder before they've even sort of woken up to what's going on, But Craig's like, I've got it covered. Trust me, it's okay. Not patronizing at all, but dude, it's okay. It's okay. So about this. And then the third time this guy speaks up, but we really need to be doing this, And Simba pipes up, look, this is Craig effing Gerard. If he says he's got it covered, he's got it covered.
And he did. And I think I've seen Gustavo's video of the 400 way, and I can only describe when everyone lands from the record as the greatest celebration I've ever seen in skydiving. I mean, it was as if everyone lost their minds. Totally. What was that like for you?
You've said it exactly. It's the greatest, celebration I've ever seen. Apparently, World Team was the largest sporting team ever united to achieve a common goal. And we'd been there for 2 weeks. It looks all glamorous from the outside, but at the end of the day, we're there for all day to do 2 jumps a day on this airfield with absolutely nothing to do there. There's one coffee stall and some deep fried locusts or something, and that's about it. So, and you always go through the same process on records. You always doubt if you're ever going to do it. You always have to push through. Everyone has emotional stuff that they have to push through. They have new things to learn because you're going to be in a slot that you haven't done before. There's a lot going on, and everybody is so focused on trying to get it done that, when we finally did it, I can feel the elation of that moment. It's almost the amount that you've suffered below the line, that means the amount above the line that you celebrate when you do get it. And then having 400 people, plus the camera guys, plus the judges, plus the support team, plus everybody else to celebrate with, it just magnifies and magnifies. It was just incredible. The atmosphere. Probably the greatest moment of my life ever. I mean, it's hard to single one thing out, but it was just truly, truly incredible. And I remember thinking then, I think this one will stand for a while, and that was 2006. So, 18 years ago now.
Do you think it'll ever be broken?
Never say never to a skydiver. I would figure that sometime it will be. The sport is always moving forward. Always. That's what keeps me so interested in it. Records are being broken, new things are being done. People are doing stunts that you don't even know how they even thought them up. Somebody someday will break it. It might not be in my lifetime, but somebody will.
What impresses you today? The sport keeps evolving. Things keep happening. That Project Valkyrie or Project VK, that blew my mind with what they were doing down there with all these sort of 3D formations together under canopy. I was like, wow, what impresses you? What goes like, wow, this sport?
Anyone that's got the imagination to think of something and have a dream and go out and do it, that impresses me. And it doesn't have to be skydiving. It can be that you want to raise goats or, cycle halfway around the world. Someone who has a dream, and as Dan would say, with skydivers aren't just dreamers, we're dreamers who dreamt something and put it into action. And you see so many examples of that. Vincent waking up one day and saying to Fred, hey, I've got this idea. How about we do a base jump and then get into a porter? That kind of stuff, like you said, like Operation VK. There's so many examples. Tom Cruise doing his motorcycle canopy stunt for the movie. Just so many times I wake up and I can't believe what some guys actually thought of and gone and pulled off and done. and obviously done in the correct way, with all the safety stuff. But there's so many facets in our sport now. The things that we can do that impresses me is that we can fly planes and wingsuits and canopies in formation all together. I mean, that blows my mind.
That is mind-blowing. Lesley, something that impresses me about you is you are obviously a world-class skydiver, but you're also a great entrepreneur. You were at the helm of British Skydiving's magazine that was published for 15 years. And then after that, a few years after that, you start your own magazine, which today is probably the most read magazine in skydiving. To me, that takes a lot of chutzpah to create something of your own. Tell me about starting skydivemag.com. That to me is a huge leap.
Well, I guess I'd wanted to work in skydiving since I did my first jump and became inflamed with this passion for all things skydiving. Then I was looking for some kind of role in skydiving, but I didn't want to be an instructor, the most obvious roles, because I saw people who did that can quite quickly lose the innate passion for the sport. So when the editorship of the British Parachute magazine was open, I thought, that's it, that's my job. Because then I can work in the sport, share my passion, but when I get out of an airplane, it's for me. That's my choice. So that's something I'm not going to burn out at. So I was very, very happy to run their magazine for 15 years. But I always thought that at some point I'm going to go on and run my own magazine, just purely from the point of view of it's got to be the BPA magazine. It can't be the Lesley Gale magazine because it's an associations magazine. So there are some things that, shouldn't be in there. For example, at the time, when I was started in the magazine for the BPA, then base and skydiving were two very separate things. And there was very clear statements from a lot of the skydiving authorities, governing bodies, to say almost that they would ban people who did base jumping because they were bringing the sport into disrepute, which was quite a strange thing because they were also saying that base was nothing to do with skydiving. So I couldn't quite get my head around that. But just to give you an example, then base and wind tunnels also were a little bit of a problem to introduce into the British Parachute Association magazine. And also, so I always felt I would want to do something more international because although I lived in Britain at the time, then I was traveling around the world. A lot of British skydivers do that, a lot of European skydivers, because our weather isn't so great. So if you want to do a lot of jumps, then, go somewhere else and get some reliable jumps in and then take that knowledge back. So I always thought that I would start my own magazine someday. It was just a question of when. And I imagined at that time that it would be a printed magazine, but at the point when I did leave the BPA, I resigned, I think, in 2010, then it was very clear to me then that an online magazine was the way to go, not a printed magazine. Because of how communications had changed. If you look at what people are doing between jumps, hardly anybody is reading a magazine. Most people are on their phone. So it became obvious that was the way to go. Then you don't have any print and distribution costs, and then you can get important safety messages out to all over the world, to countries who don't have a skydiving magazine of their own. USPA has one. Very, very lucky. If you're in a country that has a printed magazine, I think you're lucky. But so anyway, skydivemag.com is there to fill the gap. But it just always was obvious to me.
Yeah, but when you started at ground zero with it, you need advertisers. You need to pay bills. Was that a little bit of a scary time getting it going?
That was a huge challenge because to me it was so obvious that online was the way to go. But I didn't realize that all the people in marketing in the companies at the time, because this was 2013 when we launched. So at the time, then a lot of the marketing was focused solely on print magazines, and so it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be to convert some of that marketing budget to online. Now I'm happily in a very very different situation. Now I'm actually turning advertisers away because we only have one leading brand in each kind of area, and I'm happy to say that I think I align the leading brands in the sport are my sponsors, and they also sponsor my magazine, and they are also the ones that give me access to the most useful safety information, athletes, techniques. They give the magazine far more than money. It's resources that matter as well.
Well, congratulations to you, Lesley. I know that it's easy to look at how many followers you have on Facebook with Skydiving, which is, I think, 118.
186,000. I just noticed yesterday. I don't even know who these people are, but I know a lot of them are skydivers, or most of them, because they read the magazine. Generally, we're having about 60,000 views per month. So yes, I agree with you when you say it's the most read world magazine.
It's extraordinary. I mean, you started with 0 followers, 186,000 followers later. It's amazing that you've built this thing essentially by yourself. Amazing.
Well, I'm happy to have a team around me now. And Alethea Austin is a free fly editor for me and writing some fabulous articles. And also Andrea Pistea is doing a brilliant job on social media. And I have Andy on web design, web dev, Kev on development. So now I've got more of a team. It was a little bit more of a one-man band in the beginning.
Well, kudos to you. This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. Now, I'm not a fan of lots of ads during a podcast. I mean, who likes ads? So I'll stop talking about how marvelously wonderful Beyond Marketing is. But if you're curious about what the amazing people of Beyond Marketing do to help drop zones and manufacturers thrive, then you should check out their website at dropzone.marketing. That's dropzone.marketing. Lesley, I just saw you in Poland. We were both speaking at the European Skydiving Symposium. It was wonderful to see you, but what struck me was I know you've been through some health challenges. Having seen you, I would never have known what you've just been through. Would you be comfortable in sharing what you have been battling and just how far you've come just to make it to that stage?
Sure. Yes, it has been a long road. So December of not last year, the year before, so that would be 2022, I contracted a weird bacterial infection. I think it was from Egypt. I was jumping in Egypt and then went on there to Abu Dhabi, where I flew a lot in the wind tunnel. We did some stupid amount of tunnel in 4 days. And at the end of that time, I felt very ill, and my back particularly felt very ill. And I thought at the time that I'd just overdone the tunnel because that's in my nature, just push hard. And in fact, what happened was I had a bacterial infection that had gone into my bloodstream, so called a sepsis, and it had lodged in my lungs, in my liver, in my legs, pretty well everywhere. But the real damage was in the spine. So in many areas in the spine. So I came home still thinking that I just had overstrained my back, and after about 4 days, my mobility just got worse and worse, and it was a point where I was crawling. I literally had to crawl to go to the bathroom. I couldn't walk anymore. That we thought maybe we should call somebody. And then it was a bit strange because then we realized, we live in France. We don't even know what the emergency number is. But we got through that and went to hospital. And they had diagnosed it as a severe bacterial infection, put me on antibiotics. And it didn't get better for a while. So I was in hospital for 3 weeks overall, transferred to another hospital. And I literally couldn't walk. I was completely immobilized in bed. They gave me a cast to put on, like a plastic cast that went all over the torso, and said to me, I had to wear it all times. Don't turn around. Do not turn around. Your back could fracture, and then that is it for you. And I thought, yes, that would be it, wouldn't it, if my spine fractured? So yeah, it was one of the most hideous, the most desperate time of my life. Nights in hospital, literally wondering, am I ever going to be able to walk again? Is this it? Is this what my life is going to be now? But sometime later, then the antibiotics started working. They gave me stronger antibiotics. There was lots of tumors in my spine, and they couldn't operate because there were so many of them. So it was just super strong antibiotics. So And the day they said they were going to send me home, I remember thinking, so it was a bit like you're going home tomorrow. And there was two things. Like, one, I was hooray. But yeah, I just thought, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I can't walk. I haven't got out of bed for 3 weeks. And I tell you, it's astonishing how quickly your muscles waste away when when you're not doing anything. But at the same time, I wasn't going to stay in hospital any longer than, any longer than was absolutely necessary. So ambulance home. I happened to be in a house where I got a bathroom on the ground floor, but I was on it with a Zimmer frame, a walking frame, for a while, and pretty well bedridden, and just using the Zimmer frame to go to the bathroom. Nurses coming in twice a day to inject me with antibiotics because they were so strong I couldn't take them orally. I remember just pushing things on the Zimmer frame. I'm like, I'm going to get further. I'm going to go a little bit further. I'm going to go around the house, And gradually, I got to the point where I was on crutches, and then I started going. If I can just do two stairs and go down the stairs, and then I go through the three, and then the next day I made it to the balcony on the stairs, and just pushed myself slowly, really, home. Slowly got onto one crutch, and once I got onto one crutch, I was at the point where I could go and have physio. My partner had to drive me. I mean, at this point, I couldn't drive, couldn't do any sort of serious exercise. So yeah, that was, I guess, about a year ago that I stopped on the antibiotics. And when I first, the walking progress was very, very gradual. When I became gradually from the crutch to the stick, and then I was walking on my own. But really, it was a kind of waddle. It was a struggle, a proper struggle. And then you're very, very proud and happy to go to ESS this year and realize that if you didn't know me, then you wouldn't have known. I mean, I feel different. It still feels to me as though I'm walking in concrete Wellington boots. I have pins and needles on my feet, and I don't get kind of signals back in the way that I used to. And my walk feels strange to me, but from the outside, I can see that it doesn't look any different. And I'm extremely, extremely grateful for the healing powers of the body to respond in that time. Because for the same money, I could have been where I was at before, which is not being able to walk. What basically happened is the bacteria that grew in my spine interfered with the signals going from the brain to the legs. So every single little thing that I've got back, and then I've had to relearn by just repeating the same action, repeating the same action, repeating the same action. And then the body is an incredible machine. As Ileana said to me, the body always wants to heal. And yeah, I've been choked up, to be honest, how amazing my recovery has been. About a month ago, I was overjoyed to fly in a tunnel again. I didn't know, am I going to jump again? Am I going to be able to tunnel fly again? All these things pale into insignificance when you've been through a time of thinking that you might not be able to walk. You realize that walking is truly the biggest gift that we can have. Skydiving is a luxury. That's just the chocolate on the icing on the cake. It stopped being, I'm so passionate about skydiving, but I was more passionate about learning to walk again than learning to skydive. I realized that was really, really far more important. But having learned to walk again, then to get in the tunnel and fly with Sean, and she pushed me really hard, and it's all there. My body still knows what to do. It can still fly in the tunnel. It was the most wonderful, incredible experience. I guess it would be like taking a first-time person who's never flown in the tunnel and you put them in and they can automatically fly like Craig Girard or something, because I just went in not knowing what I could do, and poof, I was there. It was as though I'd never been out.
That is such a scary experience, Lesley, to one day be charging so hard, Abu Dhabi and here and there, and then like a major health crisis. This is a major thing. Has this changed your perspective on how you view life?
Well, certainly gratitude. We all know that you don't know what you've had till you lose it, and we should practice gratitude. And we all know this, and we all think we do. But every morning I hug my legs. Every morning I say, thank you, legs. So just simple gratitude for those things in life. The first time that I rode a bike again, oh my goodness, the joy. It's a simple joy of being able to ride a bike. So I think an immense amount of gratitude for the simple pleasures in life. Certainly appreciation for my friends, because there were a lot of people. I didn't put it on social media because that's just not me. Other people can share their stuff in the way that they like. I didn't particularly keep it a secret, but I didn't put it out there either. So if you were in touch with me, then you knew. I've got a gratitude for those people who are around me, and an awareness that stuff can happen at any time. It doesn't matter how big or clever or whatever we are. I mean, there was no lesson in that. It wasn't as though I hooked in a landing and bust my femur and then had to spend that time coming back. I mean, really, they think I got it swimming from paddling in a hotel pool, and it was the most beautiful, proper, expensive hotel as well. It wasn't, so there's nothing that I could have done differently other than maybe not go for the most harmless paddle in the pool. How pointless is this? Kayaking, skydiving, skiing, all these things I do, and I get something from going paddling. But I mean, it just shows that you never know what is around the corner. I think I've lived my life this way anyway. I'd moved to France 2 years ago and I think that shows I'm not scared to take risks in life. But yeah, you never know what's around the corner. So if you're thinking about something, do it now.
Whew. Leslie, I think that's the perfect place to end this conversation. I have known you for many years and have admired the way that you charge, and the lesson that you've just shared with us is a good reminder. Life is short. Get after it. Leslie, congratulations on an amazing career, and I'm excited to see what's next, because I know you're not slowing down.
Thank you, James. And I really admire what you're doing with these podcasts. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to most of them. And thank you for inviting me to share my story.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode, which is released every Monday. If you want to contact the team, our email address is podcast@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies, Fun Days. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for our next episode.